everybody. Welcome to the zswiggs Show. This is episode number 3. It's amazing we've made it this far already. Can't believe it. 3 episodes in, haven't been fired, haven't been canceled. It's a miracle, really. It's kind of unbelievable to me. But here we are, episode 3. Good afternoon. Happy Friday. Welcome to the zswiggs Show. I am your host, zswiggs, and on this show, we talk about everything. We talk about gaming culture, we talk about gaming news, Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox, pop figurines, amiibo, new accessories, cool clothes, everything involving gamer culture. Welcome to the zswiggs Show. This week, we've got a bunch of Nintendo news to talk about. Some rumors, some facts, but as PlayStation and Microsoft, I believe, are holding their cards close to their chest in preparation to save everything for E3. We're going to have a lot of Nintendo to talk about today. But as far as this show goes, we are live every Friday at noon Central Time. Yes, I changed the time. 1 o'clock. I just don't know why I was waiting another hour. Let's do it at noon. Noon Central Time at duo.com, DEWOH.com/live. And of course, you can subscribe to the audio version on Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, all the usual suspects, and all of those links are available at our official website at duo.com/zswiggs. That's DEWOH.com/ZSWIGGS. So, y'all, let's jump right into it. Y'all ready for this? You guys get the deal. So, here's what we got, guys. Nintendo, for the first time in a while, and probably the last company to do it, they have showcased their plans for E3. So we already knew that Nintendo was not going to have a big keynote speech like Microsoft and Sony. They're both doing these huge keynotes, and we knew that already. Not a big deal. We kind of figured Nintendo for the past few years hasn't been doing keynotes, kind of figured this year would be no different, and we were right. It is no different. But they are doing some cool things. They're going to do a fun little treehouse, which is what they did last year, where they're going to play some games. They're doing some tournaments. They're for Splatoon and for ARMS, which I'm pretty hyped about. I wasn't too excited about ARMS until last week or a couple weeks, they released the detailed traditional controls, which is something that Nintendo are the only people on the planet that would have to worry about traditional controls. But basically that means not motion controls, which is great because that's my least favorite thing about Nintendo games up till now is their enraging motion controls. But if I can play ARMS, which is made by the same people that made Mario Kart 8 for the Wii U, which is a masterpiece of a game in my opinion, I'm definitely hyped about ARMS now and the people and playing it against people. The tournament, obviously not too hyped about, probably get beat, but it's going to be cool to see ARMS being played competitively and, competitively as competitive as Nintendo can get. But ARMS will be fun, and of course Splatoon 2. The Splatoon tournaments are always fun. Last year they did a Splatoon 2 tournament, and it was fantastic. I was super excited to see that, and I'm glad it's back again. So, the official press release says, as part of Nintendo's plan to deliver news about upcoming games all throughout the year, the company will provide a packed week of activities at the E3 video game show, which runs from June 13th to June 15th in Los Angeles. Proceedings will be headlined by the first ever opportunity to play Super Mario Odyssey, Mario's upcoming sandbox-style adventure game for the Nintendo Switch, as well as other Nintendo Switch games. Additional activities at the annual show include a Nintendo Spotlight, an E3 2017 video presentation announcing new details for Nintendo Switch games launching this year, and the return of Nintendo Treehouse live at E3. And of course, tournaments for ARMS and Splatoon 2 games live-streamed from the show floor. Our various E3 activities will showcase the next step for the Nintendo Switch, from a summer of social competitive gaming to a holiday season highlighted by a milestone of Mario Adventure, said Reggie Fils-Aimé, the president and CEO of Nintendo of America. With Nintendo Treehouse live at E3, fans at home can watch in-depth gameplay of Nintendo Switch and Nintendo 3DS games launching this year. Nintendo's E3 activities kick off Tuesday, June 13th at 9 a.m. Pacific with the Nintendo Spotlight E3 2017 video about Super Mario Odyssey and another Nintendo Switch games, and will focus on games launching in 2017. Immediately following, Nintendo is bringing back Nintendo Treehouse, a showcase of upcoming games for the 3DS and the Switch. And of course, I mean, this is all streamed from the show floor. and then, of course, the tournament. So really what's the biggest hype about this, besides, just the fun factor that Nintendo brings to all their E3s with the Splatoon tournaments and the ARMS tournaments, but they're also going to have the first ever playable Super Mario Odyssey. So I'm really hyped to see how great Super Mario Odyssey has gotten over the past few months, because there was some polish that definitely needed to happen at that Switch reveal back in January, but it looked pretty complete. So I'm pretty hyped to see that as it happens. Now, what new games are they going to talk about? Because we know Odyssey is going to come out. Well, I think the biggest one that we're going to have to speculate over is this. Pokémon reveal video for Sun and Moon has been removed from Nintendo's marketing channels on YouTube. So what does this mean? Well, a lot of people are convinced that they are making room to talk about Pokemon Stars, which is the much rumored and highly anticipated Pokemon game coming out for the Switch, hopefully. That's what we're all hoping. So the idea here is that they got rid of Sun and Moon reveal, so when they put up this Pokemon Stars debut video, people won't get confused. So basically, Nintendo did some housekeeping on its American and Japanese YouTube channels this week. An old Pokemon-themed Nintendo Direct was taken out with the trash. Confused by the sudden deletion of the Arcom stream, fans are theorizing that it's a sign of an imminent Pokemon Stars announcement. This particular video Nintendo took down was last February's review of Pokemon Sun and Moon, which came at the end of a short presentation for the series' anniversary. Joe Merrick of fansite Cerebi.net pointed out that the video was gone on NeoGAF, offering his hypothesis to why. Quote, Nintendo still has the X and Y up, he wrote of a previous pair of Pokemon games announced in Nintendo Direct. We never had an enhanced version of X and Y. That could muddle the message. Typically, they remove videos when things like that could happen. The hope here is that Nintendo is gearing up to reveal Pokemon Stars, the rumored Nintendo Switch re-release of Pokemon Sun and Moon. A Eurogamer report from November said that Pokemon Stars is set for a mid-2017 release, but there's been little proof that that is the case. Even with little to go off but a video that spontaneously disappeared, many fans predict that the new Nintendo Direct is coming soon to take this one's place. The speculation may be undercut by the fact that the original X and Y reveal is gone from YouTube, although the expanded Pokemon focus in the Direct that followed remains online. Still, Nintendo does tend to keep an immaculate archive of Nintendo Direct presentations, and the Sun and Moon reveal served a greater purpose of celebrating a franchise as a whole. We keep our own archive of the Sun and Moon, blah, 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 blah. So, basically, we all want Pokemon Stars. We want Pokemon to come to the console. The fact that it's not at the console hurts my heart a little bit. It should be there. It's everything we want. Why haven't they brought it? I have no idea. But we all want Pokemon Stars. And having the Switch now is the perfect place for a Pokemon game. Because it is big on your TV, which is something that we've really never had before. We've never had a true Pokemon full RPG on a television. It's something that we've always wanted. And no, the thing where you played it in Pokemon Stadium using that adapter does not count. Playing it on your Super Game Boy cartridge on the Super NES does not count. I'm talking about a fully rendered Pokemon meant for the TV that then, of course, you can unplug from the dock and take it with you, and it's still portable Pokemon, which is it's bread and butter, really, for the past 20 years. So we all want this. I'm going to take this as, this is obviously a grain of salt. It's all speculation, but we're all going to pretend that this is true. And hopefully they will make the announcement at E3 that this is, in fact, what's happening. Because the hype levels would be off the charts exciting if this was the case. So what else does Nintendo have? Just kind of as a side note here, Nintendo has recently filed for a trademark for a Bowser spinoff. Yoshi, Luigi, Wario, and Captain Toad have all got their own games as spin-offs, first appearing in the Mario series. But Nemesis Bowser has yet to be featured in his own spin-off. However, it looks like King Koopa's Lucky Day might just be around the corner. Nintendo has recently filed a trademark for Koopa, the actual word Koopa, Bowser's Japanese name. This might mean that the Mushroom Kingdom's greatest threat will be receiving his very own game. So, again, just a very small fragment. Maybe they just needed to do this because they haven't done it yet. And as Nintendo and Koopa and Bowser are kind of synonymous with Nintendo at this point, King Koopa, Koopalings. There's tons of Koopas out there. There's baby Koopas. There's a lot of Koopas, and maybe they're just trademarking it because they want to make sure that, they actually have legal protection for the word Koopa, and that would be totally fine. But it would be pretty great to see a Bowser spinoff game, a game where the bad guy stars for once. There's been some quasi Bowser games. There was a Paper Mario spinoff that had Bowser as a pretty main character, so it wouldn't be unheard of to think of this, but again, every time I think about these new games, I just think the Switch killed the 3DS, and now I want all of these games in 720 1080p, and I want them to be on my Switch, so I can take them with me just like I would my 3DS, or I can play them in glorious HD on my television and have a better experience or a just as good experience, and that's what makes the Switch so special. So I'm hoping that happens for both the Pokemon game and any new games, including this Bowser spinoff that may or may not be coming. Also, these Splatoon tournaments and these ARMS tournaments, pretty hyped about them, going to take place. They're open to the public because this is, of course, the first time that E3 is open to the public. So if you're going to be in Los Angeles, you're going to be going to E3. Good luck in the Splatoon tournaments and the ARMS tournaments. But the coolest thing for me about Splatoon 2 is Nintendo's weird little online stuff that they did. So if you didn't know this, Splatoon 1... their online, their map rotation, basically every 4 hours, they would change up the 2 maps that you could play on during your gaming. So if you sat down for a 4-hour block, you're going to play on 2 maps and 2 maps only during those 4 hours. Why they did this, I have no idea. I don't really know the logic behind this. It doesn't really make sense, but I guess they made it a little better. The developers themselves said that the reason they did it was because people could kind of play with their loadouts and say, oh, for this map, I'm going to use these weapons, and for this map, I'm going to do these weapons, because they didn't really allow in-lobby loadout changes. So you would have to pick and then go in with those 2 maps, and you would know those 2 maps were the only ones you play, and you had to pick those weapons before you load in. And in order to change your weapons, you would actually have to leave matchmaking altogether, leave the lobby, change your weapons, and load back into a different lobby. So that was their reasoning for lowering them down. But in Splatoon 2, apparently they're keeping it. They're just going to lower it from 4 hours to 2 hours, which again, just kind of put them all in rotation and then let us change our guns in a lobby. That would make the most sense, but I don't know. I'm holding judgment until I see how Splatoon 2 handles multiplayer. Like I've said many times, Nintendo kind of steps on their own foot a lot when it comes to multiplayer, and I'm hoping that Splatoon 2 is the first sign that they're going to turn that around and act like it's 2017 and that online gaming is a thing that happens, because I'm really hoping that Nintendo gets out of their own way when it comes to online, because that's one of the things that I believe will make or break the Switch. Not having good online is going to be tough for the console. It'll be hard for a console to get any growth and have third-party support if online support is completely different than the way it is on the other consoles. So I'm hoping Splatoon 2 at least makes some changes in that direction. This doesn't give me a lot of hope, but it's also a staple of Splatoon, so they did make it 2 hours instead of 4 hours, and you could probably play 20 games, 15 games in 2 hours, so it's not terrible. It's not as bad as it used to be, but it's still weird. It's just that Nintendo's got to do it their own way type of thing, and that's kind of annoying, but what are you gonna do? So, what else? Talking to platformers and games that do it their own way, Ukulele is a game that I have loved for a long time. I 100%ed it just a little bit ago. It was fantastic, burst of nostalgia, but it definitely had some quirks in it. So basically, Brian Shea recently interviewed writer and communications director Andy Robinson from Playtonic Games about Ukulele's post-launch. The game's release brought along an array of review scores. PlayStation Wire gave it an 8.7, Polygon gave it a 5.5, IGN gave it a 7, and Andy discusses what the team was expecting, a variety of scores, but not to the extent it received last month. So, I would give Ukulele maybe a 7. I think 7's fair. Some of the stuff about it is annoying. Personally, I wish the text, they kept like the bah, 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 talking head with the bubbles and all that, and that's kind of lame. Again, it's good for nostalgia, but I wish you could skip it or make it go very fast. And And then, like, the camera, I think, was the most frustrating part of the game. It didn't... In modern games, post N64, when you had double joysticks, okay? Because back in the N64 days, I don't know if you guys remember this, but basically back in the N64 days, you would literally take, you have the big hook in one hand, and then you had the small hook in the other, and you had the one joystick that moved you in, 360. But then the C buttons, left, right, up, down, they controlled the camera. So you would literally tap C right, and the camera would go whoop and move to the right. It wouldn't be like, as long as you hold it, it's moving. It would literally have a fixed position, 8 positions around a sphere that it would then move. And, up and down C, zoomed in the camera and zoomed out the camera. I think the biggest problem I had with Ukulele is they didn't really change the way the camera worked. So if you use the second stick to move the camera, instead of it moving, exactly as you move the stick a little, camera moves a little. You move the stick a lot, camera moves fast, like modern games do. What would happen is you pressed right, the camera would go whoop and get stuck to the next little point in this sphere, and basically you would have to relearn to move because the camera was kind of garbage. And many, many, many times, to the point where it was actually frustrating, the Ukulele camera would get you killed or would make platforming more difficult just because you're used to playing platformers like Jak and Daxter or Ratchet and Clank or, even as things like Uncharted would go. You expect to be able to move with the camera in addition to the actual stick. So it was a lot of unlearning muscle memory, and I had to go back to when I was 15 and playing Banjo-Kazooie on the 64, and it was frustrating. That was my biggest complaint about Ukulele, and literally, that one complaint probably knocked a good 3 points off the score, because it's beautiful, it's well-written, the collectibles are cleverly hidden, they're not overly annoying to find. The music is great. The graphics are great. The writing is great. I feel like I said those things already, but you get my point. The game itself is a perfect platformer with the exception of the camera. If they had a modern camera, the game would have been flawless. But basically, they have released some patches that fix that. So Brian Shea recently interviewed Andy Robertson, the comms and writers director. He said, "It's difficult to please everybody all the time, of course, but the comments we've seen, good and bad, and there were a lot of really positive reviews, suggest that fans of Golden Age 3D platformers will enjoy Ukulele a lot," which I totally agree with. I enjoyed Ukulele a lot. Was it perfect? No. Did I enjoy it? Absolutely. Of course, we all take constructive criticism on board, which is why we've already released a patch to further improve things like performance and polish, and we're continuing to do that behind the scenes. At one point, other details in this article included cut dialogue, and sorry for breaking the fourth wall, but a doozy was originally cut from a script. Andy shared it. At one point, Capital B had a whole series of taunts for the Icy Magic Palace area, including one for the room with the endless scrolling walls, which he literally called an area for breaking the fourth wall in the fifth and the sixth. There was also something in Capital Casino about the target game being the spiritual successor to an earlier target game, but the NPC for that challenge ended up being cut. So, in true tongue-in-cheek fashion, we can look forward to the franchise getting a sequel, but hopefully not with the class-based, free-to-play brawling and microtransactions that Andy shared. Yes, even if the Platonic crew wants a new hat for trouser, we'd still prefer a sequel remedying the biggest complaints about the game, or having Ukulele Amiibo ready when it comes to the Switch later this year. So, again, they've already fixed the camera problem a little bit. I probably need to log back in and spend some time with it. I've already, like I said, 100%ed it, so I'm not super hyped to jump back in and just run around. But I do need to check the new camera, and they added the ability to speed up some dialogue. So a lot of the little quality of life things that kept it from being an 8 or a 9, they apparently have addressed. So if you haven't checked out Ukulele and you're a fan of Banjo-Kazooie style games, it's definitely worth checking out, even if they hadn't fixed these things, because it's 90% joy and 10% unbridled Super Saiyan style rage, and but that 90% I think is worth your time. So, talking about old games still, Eiji Aonuma, who is the director, or is he the producer? I think he's the producer of the Zelda series, longtime producer of the Zelda series, came out and he talked about Breath of the Wild's open-air world and where he's taking the series in the first place. So he talked to Japanese magazine Nikkei Trendy, And he explained how the concept of the open air came to be in Breath of the Wild and why its integration into the series was important for future titles. After moving the series from 2D to 3D with the introduction of Ocarina of Time, Anuma's goal, he was producer even way back then, was to create a game that could be played and appreciated by everyone, including players who hadn't yet had the pleasure of becoming immersed in a 3D game. At the time of Ocarina's release, it was the development team's goal to create an obvious and direct routes so players could advance in the game without experiencing the anguish of getting lost, despite the world being rather expansive in N64 terms. Quote, at that time, I thought it was the right thing. However, as we stacked on the series, not getting lost would produce feelings of blockages, like cannot do anything but that, or cannot run away. So more and more people felt dissatisfied with that. Aoma continued that suggesting that an open-air world seemed to be the solution to the blockages players would feel as they ventured out into the vast spaces throughout Hyrule. Having a variety of options while trekking through a large, far-reaching world would provide players with a bigger, more personal Zelda experience. Quote, so I think if there are 100 people experiencing it, there will be 100 ways to progress. That's his quote. I think it's important that Aonuma and his team, that they continue surprising Zelda fans with new ways to play the games while maintaining a recognizable Zelda environment. From their need to bring masses with a new surprising adventure, Breath of the Wild's open-air world was born, and after receiving such high praises from critics and fan alike, Aonuma and his team are moving forward with the notion of surprising people by applying their creative approaches to future titles in the Zelda series. That said, we'll likely be seeing more and unique ways to explore Hyrule in the near future. So, essentially, he's saying that they went open world because he didn't like the linear playstyle that they introduced in Breath of the Wild, which is ironic because in Ocarina of Time, which is ironic because in Ocarina of Time, they went to a linear style because the Super NES and NES versions were pretty much open world, go anywhere, do anything. You just get destroyed, just like in Breath of the Wild, if you weren't allowed to be there. So they've kind of gone full circle, went open world to linear, back to open world, and I don't know if we're ever going to see them head back. Open world's very trendy right now, and I'm sure at some point the other shoe will drop and it will stop being trendy, but I'm waiting for that day. I don't know when it'll come. I can't even promise that it will come, because it may not. But it certainly is interesting. I mean, Zelda Breath of the Wild it's the highest rated game of all time, which to me is crazy. I mean, it was a very good game. It's probably in my top 5 games of all time. But it was lacking in story to me. And the fact that it was lacking in story really hurt it. It reminded me a little bit of like Half-Life 2 when they give you the gravity gun, like basically right at the start of the game. And you could do anything with it. Anything in the game is basically open to you now. You have all the weapons. Well, Zelda Breath of the Wild kind of reminded me of that. They give you everything you need to beat the game in the first 4 shrines in the game. The difference is that Half-Life 2 had this really incredible involved story, and then Zelda did not. It was basically a series of movies, like 15 of them, and then a really underwhelming boss battle, which, again, the sandbox, the playground that Breath of the Wild sat in was the best part of the game, and honestly, it was so great, probably the best one ever, that the story part of it kind of languished. But I would love to see Nintendo tell a real story, an adult-style story, something with meaning and something with heart into it for the next Zelda, but with the same playground that we got in Breath of the Wild, and that would make, in my opinion, could be the best game of all time. I don't know. Witcher 3, pretty dang good. Now, speaking of Nintendo and money and sales, Nvidia is getting a kickback from all the Tegra chips that are inside the Switch. So apparently they are poised to make, according to Yahoo Finance, hundreds of millions of dollars in additional revenues in fiscal 2018 thanks to the Nintendo Switch. RBC Capital Markets analyst Mitch Steves predicts Nvidia's top line may see a boost of 300 to 400 million in fiscal 2018 just from sales of the Nintendo Switch, which is powered by Nvidia technology. That's because the game maker Nintendo will reportedly double production of its brisk-selling Switch console this year from 8 million to 16 million. The move comes from Nintendo on the heels of a higher-than-anticipated demand for the Switch, which has been hard to find online and in store, even at third-party retailers like Amazon, Best Buy, and Target. Switch reviews have mostly been positive about the device's unique design, blah, 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 blah. So basically, this is going to give $300 to $400 million more to Nvidia just because of the Switch sales, which is awesome and kind of flows into this next story, which is that a study shows more people are interested in buying the Nintendo Switch than the PS4 Pro or the Scorpio. A recent survey has revealed that more people are interested in owning a Nintendo Switch console than a PS4 Pro or the upcoming Microsoft Project Scorpio. Nielsen Games 360 reports that from a pool of over 2,000 participants, 16% of gamers aged 13 and up said they would probably buy the Switch, while only 15% said the same for the PS4 Pro and 13% for the Scorpio. The report is a U.S. survey conducted yearly with the aims of researching how Americans are feeling about gaming and what products they are participating in. The trend held with members of the general population as well, with 12% interested in Nintendo's latest console hybrid, 11% looking to buy it in Sony's improved PS4, and 9% interested in the Microsoft console. Nielsen does report and does make a distinction between the PS4 and PS4 Pro as well as the Xbox One and Scorpio. However, including the currently available consoles for Sony and Microsoft dethrones Nintendo's lead. 21% of gamer audience and 15% of the general public polled is interested in buying the standard PS4, while the Xbox One is in line with 17% and then 12% interest from the Switch. That puts currently available Xbox One and Switch at an even level with the general audience. So, what this means is that people who are gamers probably already own either the PS4 or the Xbox One and are, of course, interested in getting a Switch. It is the next generation console from Nintendo. However, the PS4 Pro and the Microsoft Scorpio are both kind of like marginal upgrades to the current consoles. And so if you already own one, you probably don't want to upgrade quite yet. You're going to wait for the PS5, for example. So these numbers don't really surprise me. It's kind of a clickbaity headline, but the fact that a study shows more people are interested in buying Nintendo Switch than PS4 Pro or Scorpio is technically true. It doesn't necessarily mean people are more interested in the Switch than the PS4 in general or the Xbox in general, because obviously they are not. But the fact that Xbox is tied with the Switch, that's pretty shocking to me. And it's it feels bad for Xbox, I guess. It feels great for Nintendo, makes me feel bad for Xbox. So it's going to be interesting to see how the holidays and how E3 happens and all these new games. But Xbox needs to do something, man. I mean, I haven't talked about Xbox on this show at all, actually. There hasn't been news at all about Xbox. I assume they're holding it for E3. At least PlayStation's got this next story. But, to me, Xbox is just doing nothing. And they really need to step it up. Waiting for Halo 6. That's what we're all waiting for. And my final story today is about Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. So if you knew about Uncharted, you probably knew that there is a DLC coming out called The Lost Legacy that involves two side characters from past games. Basically, the synopsis is a standalone. It stars Chloe Frazer, and it stars who else? Nadine Ross, who is from Uncharted 4. So Chloe Frazer was in Uncharted 2 and 3, and then Nadine was introduced in Uncharted 4. Chloe was not in Uncharted 4. And they're going together, it says they, on the hunt for an ancient Indian artifact, the fabled Tusk of Ganesh, and to uncover the tusk and keep it out of the hands of a ruthless warmonger, she enlists the help of mercenary Nadine Ross, who was the first introduced in Uncharted 4, Thief's End. So, you guys probably knew that. Here's what I didn't know, and I was a little surprised by. This is not a DLC. It is a new Uncharted game. It is The Lost Legacy. They said, quote, "It is a true Uncharted experience that features its own standalone story, cast of characters, blockbuster set pieces, and distinctive gameplay. Like Uncharted 4: Thief's End, it will be available as a full digital and physical release." So, on your PlayStation, you will have Uncharted 4 as a start box, and you will have The Lost Legacy as a start box. They are two separate games. Lost Legacy is $40. I don't expect it to be a 20-hour adventure or a 15-hour adventure like Uncharted 4 was, but I expect it to be 10 hours at that price. But it's going to have its own trophies. It's going to have a platinum trophy. You do not need Uncharted 4 to play it. It is completely separate from Uncharted 4, but you do get the multiplayer from Uncharted 4. And Uncharted 4 multiplayer is actually very fun. So it's going to be kind of interesting to get that community a little bit bigger, and people who may not know that much about Uncharted. This might be a good jumping in point for Uncharted because it has nothing really to do with Nathan Drake. So So I just thought that was pretty interesting that Uncharted The Lost Legacy is really a new Uncharted game, and it kind of throws into question what Naughty Dog is doing, because they did say that they were only going to do one more game for the PS4 after Uncharted 4, and everyone assumed, of course, that that was The Last of Us 2. But with this being technically a Uncharted game, is it possible that the PS5 will be out within the next 2 years and The Last of Us 2 will be a launch title for the PS5? It's definitely worth thinking about. You could noodle over it. Could be wrong. Could be just totally making that up. But it's certainly interesting, and to me it's something certainly interesting to think about. Think about it. Last of Us 2, it's a lot of PS5s. That's all I've got to say. All right, guys. Well, that is it for the show this week. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching live on YouTube. I will be back next Friday at noon Central Time at duo.com/live. Of course, in the meantime, subscribe to me. Subscribe to the show on iTunes, on Google Play, on Stitcher. Leave a review, 5-star review. I would very much appreciate it. And, of course, you can leave a comment on the YouTube video. You can shoot me an email at its@zswiggs.com. And, of course, you can see everything you need to know about me, about the show, and about life in general at duo.com/zswiggs, DEWOH.com/ZSWIGGS. Guys, thanks for watching. I will see you next time. Goodbye.